Warning, this video is very boring, contains an unsettling amount of rambling and heavy breathing. Be advised.
I was like, dude, that's just a headache that I am.
Unfortunately, but now we know that's the issue, and now like stay away from the fucking water no matter what. But now everybody everywhere at the sea. I was gonna say safe braces,
So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. It has started raining, so I don't know if it's going to work out. But I'm just going to give this thing a wash. Go over it because it's really, really filthy and I need to wash it, especially at the minute because they've started salting the roads. So any salt just sort of sticks to the paint and to the underside of the car. So I want to just get through, power wash it, just give it a normal wash. I'm not doing anything crazy. Might hit it with a bit of spray wax afterwards. But it has just started raining, so we'll see how we get on. Luckily the camera's inside, so that should be okay. But I'm basically just going to wash the car and talk. It's kind of going to be like a podcast, I guess, but I don't know if I'm interested enough to do a podcast, so I'm just going to talk shit and see how it goes. This may never see the light of day if it goes badly, or if it's just nonsense for half an hour. But sure, we'll get started washing it. I've put the microphone inside my jacket, so I hope you can hear me, and I hope the power wash and all's not too loud. But sure, we'll get started. First thing I want to do is just power wash the whole car, try and get in the arches and everything because they're all covered in dirt. I might jack the car up if the rain isn't bothering me too much and try and spray a bit underneath it just to knock any mud or salt and grime and all off. And we'll go over it with a sponge and we'll snow foam it and all. So yeah, let's get started. I'll just start wetting down the car. A lot of people do ask, and you might be wondering yourself, if there's salt in the roads and the weather's so bad, you know, why am I washing my car? Because I'd say by the time I get home, this thing is going to be stinking. How you doing? Oh, Ed. I'd say like literally by the time I get home, this thing will be not stinking, but it won't be great. Oh, I'm just getting dripped on by the roof here. But the thing about this is it's just trying to get all the salt off it. Yes, I undersealed the car and I waxed the cavities and all, and that's brilliant. Like, that helps a lot. But it's not magic. It can't, it can't guarantee all protection against all the salt and rot and stone chips and everything. Now, I hope it does, but it's no guarantee at all. So this is just a really good way of making sure there's no build-ups of mud in your arches and in your sills and everything like that, because that's what starts rust, is when you've got all your arches and everything full of mud and it sits there for months and months getting wet over and over again, because all that just holds and holds and holds water, and then because it's holding water, it's not drying out whenever you park up, and it's just staying wet 24/7. And because here it rains all the time, it's literally rained for I'd say the past 5 days non-stop. It just means you're literally soaking all your arches, and then in the front and back of your sills and in behind the arches, you're soaking them in salt and mud and water 24/7. Oh shit. And there's literally, there's no undercoat in the world that can keep that off forever. Now undercoating helps a lot because it keeps it off the metal and off the paint, and just gives it that barrier, but I can't guarantee I've got everywhere perfect, and I can't do all that, so you're just much better off cleaning it. Ideally you want to clean it like once a week, but that's not always possible. I think it's been about, say, 2 weeks since I washed this, maybe 3, I don't know. But yeah, you really want to get to it every week, but it's not always that easy or that straightforward. But just do it as often as you can, and especially if you can jack the car up and get right underneath it, that'll help a ton. I might do that today, but I don't know if I'll have the time or the energy. It looks like the weather might be clearing up, but I see a big dark spot over there. That'll be crap. The other thing is these wheels have diamond coating on them, and the salt loves to eat away at that and oxidise it. I feel bad for wee Ed. He seems to just be a farm dog that runs around here. I don't know if he's let inside and all. Crap. I always think about, I don't know, I might get him a wee kennel or something, so he can at least get in out of the warm, out of the cold and get warm. I don't know. It's one of those things. He's not my dog, so it's not really my place to, you know, like, do anything about it. But because he seems to be okay, but he's probably just not living the best life. Whenever it comes back up to like springtime and they stop salting the roads, I'll probably lift the cart and take all the plastics off again and just wash in all those, because I remember, even though this cart was so clean and clearly so well looked after, all behind, especially in the back of the car, behind all the plastics, was still full of dirt. And I'm sure it's already started to build up again, but take care of it before it goes too far. Yeah, I can see these wheels already starting to get a bit spidery. Now I've got another, a really old crummy sponge, and I'm just going to get in the arches, especially in this wee crevice back here, and just give them a bit of a scrub, and you can see like that's coming out completely brown in there. And that's after I power washed it and all. All those places where it just collects, that you'll then find are rotten in 5-10 years, and this car's so clean. I want to keep it that way. Ah, yeah, you see, that was much better. Only a wee bit of dirt that time. Yeah, so I'm just going to hit the car with the snow foam now. Now we can get properly into it. Oh, I've warmed this water up a little bit. Something I've been thinking about a lot, and I think it was actually, was it Gears and Gasoline? Put out a video about it recently on whether you should actually modify your car or not. And now, their point of view was, whenever you modify a car, you make it more fit for purpose. Whatever that is, whether it's going fast or looking good or being low or whatever. I think their example was they made a track Evo. It was awful to drive on the street, but obviously really quick around a track. But I feel like they didn't. Yes, they made obviously some very good points, and they're totally right. But I feel like they didn't take into account the whole picture that I think of. I've modified a lot of cars, and in my opinion, when I've modified them, I have made them better, or maybe not better to everyone, more to my taste. But it's not always been what I've expected it to be. The Starlet is sort of the perfect example. I did some mods to make it more fun, make it faster, and all that sort of stuff. Like I put LED lights in it, and I put a new radio in it so it could connect to my phone, and obviously swap the engine out and all that. And that's like, I feel like in every way I've pretty much made the car better. In some ways it's maybe not quite as comfortable as it used to be, but I would say it's better than it used to be. It's a lot more drivable and a lot more daily usable, and it's faster, it'd be quicker around the track, all that. But I feel like in a lot of ways the car lost the original feeling that it had. It feels less like a really old car now, which in any objective way is a good thing, because it made the car more modern and made it better. But it's not as much of an experience to drive the car anymore. You don't get the same novelty out of it. It's started to, because now it can keep up with traffic. You don't really have to work to get up to motorway speeds. It kind of just, it does it quite well. Where when it was originally a 1 litre carby, it was, it sounded rough. It didn't always run 100% right. It didn't have that same like sewing machine type of reliability that the fuel injected twin cam does. It was a lot more of an agricultural engine. It made a lot less power. It was so hard to get it up to any kind of reasonable speed. You had to push it so hard. But since it's sort of lost that in so many ways, I go, that's what makes those cars cool. The reason I modified it was because that was my only car, and I was driving it every single day, and it did start to become a real chore. But now that I've obviously got this, I've got a few cars, and I'm not driving it at all. That I actually think now I'd prefer if it was completely original, because it has such a unique character like that. Because I basically put a Starlet and a Corolla drivetrain in it and then slightly modified it. Otherwise it just feels like a Starlet or a Corolla, the later ones. It doesn't feel like it did when I first bought it when I was bloody 16. Now some of that will be nostalgia, is the reason I want it like that again, but I think that's something people don't talk about when they're modifying cars, is that a lot of time you lose that original feel of the car, and it now starts to feel like a different car. Like when you see people with, say, an RX-7 and they LS swap it, I've heard people say after that they just feel like a mini Corvette. That makes sense in a lot of ways, because you basically put Corvette engine in it. But then what's the point in doing an RX-7? Just go out and buy a Corvette. Yes, I know it's the look and all, but I think there's something to be said for maintaining the original feeling of a car and making it so that the car has that uniqueness to it. Because I think they say, if I've got 5 different cars in the garage and they've all got the same drivetrain, they're all going to feel largely the same to drive. Now, of course, the drivetrain's in a different position. It's turboed or built for NA or something like that. And what I want out of my cars is a unique and different experience. I don't want all my cars to feel the same, because, well, what's the point in having all of them? They all cost money. They should all give me something unique, even if what they're giving me is flawed, even if it's hard to keep up with traffic, even if it doesn't start every day, even if it's a bastard to maintain. That's a unique experience, and it has that novelty to it, even if it's not objectively good. I think this sort of thing of, their message of only modify your car if it makes it better, I don't think is always correct. I think sometimes leave the car standard, even if it's worse, because as cars evolve and as cars get more modern, they get better, they get less imperfect, and in a lot of ways lose that unique quality that they've got. I think that's people's a lot of a lot of people's problems with Teslas. No one's trying to say they're not good, or electric cars in general, I should say. No one's trying to argue that they're not good cars. They're objectively, in a lot of ways, better than petrol-powered cars. Now, there's the range problems and all that, but we'll probably sort that out eventually. But they lack uniqueness. They're just all so the same as each other. There's nothing fresh or exciting with each one, except for like interior features and all that kind of thing. You know, yes, they can have more gizmos and gadgets, so they go slightly faster or whatever, but they've lost that unique quality where with petrol cars, every petrol engine feels a bit different, sounds a bit different, delivers power differently, delivers a very different amount of power, where electric cars are levelling all that and making it all the same. That's my thing, is especially with like this era, I struggle with it a lot because I could modify it and I could make it faster, and the way I would want to modify it I don't think would make it worse, because I wouldn't want to push it too far. I'd want to make it daily drivable and all that, but I worry I'd lose the original feel and the original novelty of it. Now, I don't think the engine in that car is the crowning jewel of what makes it special, by any means, but if I change the engine, or make the engine very different from what it once was, the car will feel very different from what it once did, and that's not necessarily the best thing for it. So that's sort of what I've been thinking about. Should we modify cars if we're making them better, or should some cars be left alone and left to be imperfect? Because I think that's what we're going to crave in 10-15 years, is something that's not like everything else and something that's different. That's part of the reason I love the Altezza. I've seen a lot of articles of people saying, oh, the Altezza's slow, or, you know, it only makes 200 horsepower, which, I'll not lie, to me is still a lot. I know some people, that's like, if you don't have 500 horsepower, it's nothing. But to me, 200 horsepower is still a reasonable number. But a lot of people do turbo the Altezzas, and they make really good power turboed, for obvious reasons. Like, there's such a high compression, high revving engine, when once you just give that a bit more air, it loves it. But I don't think I could ever turbo that thing. It would lose what I think is most unique about it, which is that the engine in it has such an unreal power delivery. So I don't know if I've talked about this too much on the channel yet, but the Altezza, literally, it has reasonable torque for putting around town, which is great. You can actually put around quite quickly, and you won't feel lacking, but it's not quick off the line. But once you hit about 5,000 revs, the thing takes off and pulls so hard all the way up to its 8,000 RPM red line, and it's the most unreal experience ever compared to so many engines that say only, like the G6 Corolla only revved to 6, but sort of by like 5.5 it was pretty dead and there wasn't much left there. So it's like, I feel like if you turboed it, it would make it too powerful down low, which is obviously where the car suffers, and if you turboed it, you wouldn't really sacrifice much anywhere. The car, I think, would be objectively better. You might sacrifice reliability, of course, but if you build out the engine in other ways and you don't tune it too aggressively, you're probably not losing a whole pile of reliability into Toyota, so it's always going to last a long time. But I think you would just lose its unique. It would start to feel like, you know, an SR20 car because of that, and you wouldn't you couldn't rev it out because you would just be making too much power for any normal speed limit, like, because that thing already, you know, before you even, by the time you're at the top of third gear, you're speeding on any UK road. So if you turbo that, you're only going to get to that speed that much quicker. Yes, it'll be exciting, but you can't enjoy it as much. It would just be too fast. In that sense, where it's like, right now I can rev it out and listen to the engine, and because of that, the torque dip before 5,000, it encourages you to rev it, where if there was torque everywhere, it wouldn't be as fun to rev it out, because there's nothing to gain by it, because you'd have to, you know, you couldn't push the torque too much at the top end. Well, you probably could. I don't know, but it's just, I don't know, I like the NA. And especially with every car today being turbo, because objectively turbo's generally better, it makes it that an NA high revving engine becomes such a novelty, because I can't think of any car out today except for the GT86, or the GR86, that has a similar sort of engine. But even then, I don't think they rev as high, make more power, but they're also a bigger, heavy, you know, a bigger engine. And they're a flat floor as an inline, so it obviously sounds different. But it's just like, you know, you don't get that kind of engine anymore, where, especially now, everyone complained about the torque dip in the GT86. So they moved the torque peak down, where this has a really high torque peak. Can't remember what it is, but it's something stupid. But that's what makes the car fun. I don't get the complaining about the torque dip, because yes, it's slower, but it encourages you more to use the revs. Anyway, I should rinse this thing off before it dries out. So I've got this Rapid Aqua Wax that someone gave me. They just had some lying about, and I haven't used it before, so I'm interested to see how it comes out. So put a couple of sprays on. But yeah, so getting back to my point, the Altezza definitely won't be getting much engine mods, especially nothing internal or like power adders, no superchargers, no turbos, nothing like that. The only thing I might do is like intake and exhaust, because that's easily reversed. And it would just let me hear the engine that much more, which would be a big plus, because the engine just sounds so good. You know, you can tell it was designed by Yamaha. It really does sound like a 4-cylinder, not quite a sport bike, but you know, it does sound like a motorbike engine. It obviously doesn't rev that high, but just the sort of wail it gives off. And I do hope I can make a video soon doing that. It's just getting the time, because if I'm doing it, I want to do it properly. But yeah, and it's like I need to sort out some sort of microphone system so I can capture that sound and try and get it across camera, because I think, especially from like outside, it probably just sounds like a normal 4-cylinder. I haven't actually heard it myself to really know, but that would be my guess, is that it probably doesn't sound like anything special. But when you're sat in the car, it is something else. I know, that's what's been playing on my mind lately. It's just, is it worth modifying cars? Now, obviously certain cars you just want to do it for the crack, especially if they're not rare or not, you know, in low volume, or I'd say the engine's not really that special to the car, or the car's not special itself. Yeah, so I think it's just be careful if you're modifying cars, because you might lose a part of the car that you really like without realising, or even a part you don't realise you like now, and it could come back to bite you, because I've definitely made that mistake. I really miss the old 1 litre carby engine that was in the Starlet, because it's like, if I want to go fast, I'll jump in this, it's way quicker and way more stable and handles way better. Why wouldn't I just get in this and go? Or this doesn't give me the same feeling that the Starlet did when it was stock. Because when the Starlet was stock, it was just so flawed and it was so agricultural. But that just made it so much fun. Because you could really just rag it. And it just was still so slow. But it sounded so weird and all that. Because of it. I think I'm going to need a couple of microfiber cloths for this. So you can see the wax working. That rain's beading up nicely on it. But yeah, I'm not trying to make this thing look perfect. I'm not going to any shows with it anytime soon. It's just to get it clean and protected. But yeah, but to counter my points I've made, I think small stuff is okay. Suspension, wheels, like I think it's very easily undone. And generally, especially with suspension, if you buy good quality bits, you're generally making a change for the better, not for the worst. The worst, and it can always, if you don't like it, you can always go back. I did that with the start. I put really cheap eBay lowering springs on it. The car drove, it looked incredible, drove like shit. Just bouncy, bottoming out all over the place. I remember I put it on an alignment machine once. Camber and caster was all over the place. And on those cars, because of their strut, you know, McPherson strut, there's no easy way to adjust it without buying parts. So that was horrible. I had to go back to original, put it back to standard, and it was so much nicer to drive every day. But sure, I guess that goes with the point of gears and gasoline, where they were saying sometimes you do modify your car for the worst, and that's definitely true. And I've definitely done it many times. But yeah, I guess all I want you to think about is next time you get in your car, if you've aspirations of doing an engine swap or doing a turbo swap, or let's put a cam in it, or let's put ITBs on it, just think to yourself, will the car feel the same? And maybe even more importantly, could I get the same experience from another car? Like say you've got a Starlet and you want to put cams and ITBs on it because it'll sound incredible, and it will, and then rev it to the moon, put stiffer valve springs in it, put an ECU in it, and rev it like crazy. But then you sort of think the amount of money that would cost, and you're going to lose the feel of the original 4E engine. Yes, you'll have made a better car. It might be a little harder to deal with every day, but yes, overall you will have made a better car. But you could also probably for similar money go out and buy a 11 BZR that came with the 20 valve. I don't know what money those are today, but I think they're about 4 or 5 grand, which is what it would cost to do ITBs and an ECU and cams and build an engine for a Starlet. And you could probably keep the Starlet, keep that as its original feel, and go and buy 11. And you could put an intake and an exhaust on 11, it would sound just as good as your Starlet would with all that done, and make more power and be more reliable. So just think about it, because you might regret in 10 years having done all that to your Starlet, and because you've cut the wiring loom and you had to cut the intake manifold to fit the ITBs because you wanted to use the original flange, and oh yeah, you don't have the original cams or valve springs and all anywhere, and it would take so much time and effort to put it back to stock. Because that's where I am with my Starlet, that maybe just don't do it in the first place. Enjoy the car for what it is. Do little things that make it a bit more of a laugh. Put an intake on it, put an exhaust on it, have a bit of a laugh with it and enjoy it, but don't go crazy with the mods, because you might lose that feel of the car. Because you might, say you're 17 now with the Starlet, you might end up being, 27 and going, oh, I just miss when the started every day and I could just get in it and go around and tear about the countryside and just have a laugh on it. But now it's too much effort and it can only run on this fuel, so if I can't get to a petrol station that has 99 octane, what am I going to do? And all this, where just maybe leave it standard so you can go back and enjoy your old memories of what it was. Yeah, just that's what I've been thinking about lately. It's a tough question to answer. At the end of the day, just do whatever you think is best and whatever makes you happy, but be careful that you might lose something that you love about your car. But anyway, I think this is done. Hope you enjoyed this video, something a bit different. Maybe not quite as exciting, but I enjoyed making it anyway. Sure. Leave me a comment. Let me know if I should do more of these. Subscribe, there's plenty of things coming up. Yeah, see you later. If you've made it to this point in the video, fair play to you. It's been a pretty slow, but bit something different. So I decided, for anyone who's made it this far in the video, I'm going to give something back. I've made up some Engine Boy stickers and some Autobacks service stickers that I've recreated from ones I found in the Altezza. If you want one, follow me on Instagram at Engine Boy Media and send me a DM. Tell me about your first car, or if you haven't got a car yet, what you want your first car to be, and I'll send you one for free, one of each. Also, since you made it this far in the video, I'll give you just a quick sneak peek at what you'll be seeing coming in the next few weeks. So, ready? Here it is. Alright, that's all you're getting. You'll have to stick around to see that when it comes up.